Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings for Tuesday, June the 4th. I'm going to go ahead and take an early look at Tuesday's slate. Since on Monday there's only 3 games and it's all late night games, since all our main slate's a late night slate on Monday. Figured I'd go ahead and take an early look at Tuesday's slate, full 15 gamer. We're going to talk about all the pitching options I like, start at the top, work our way down. We got 6 options over 10K on DraftKings, so it's a pretty loaded pitching slate just in terms of stud pitchers. And I was taking a look at it before I started recording. There's even some pretty decent mid-range and value plays as well that I like. So a lot of ways you can go. Since it's a 15-game slate, there's obviously going to be a ton of ways you can go for bats as well. A lot of pretty high totals on this slate. We'll go over some of the stacks I like as we get towards the end of the video, and we'll also take a look at BVP plays as well. Just before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like on the video, and if you are new to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button down below so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. I would really appreciate it. But starting off at the top with Steven Strasburg, he is our most expensive pitcher today on DraftKings. He is $11,500, and he gets a matchup at home against the White Sox. So Strasburg is in a very good spot. It is a White Sox team that strikes out a lot versus right-handed pitching. They're also going to be in the National League today, so they're going to lose their DH. They're going to have to put the pitcher in the lineup. They also have a very low total, 3.3 implied run total today. Strasburg has been great this year. I think he is one of the top plays today. But since Blake Snell is only $500 cheaper, I think that's going to lean me to play more Blake Snell because I really like Blake Snell's matchup against the Tigers. But can't go wrong with Steven Strasburg. He's my next favorite guy to Snell. Snell's my number 1, though. I really like him here against a Tigers team that does strike out a lot versus left-handed pitching. There are plenty of Ks in this lineup to where Snell can have a lot of success against this Tigers team, and they also have a very low total today, just a 3.4 implied run total for the Tigers. Snell's a guy that I'm trying to jam in as much as I can here. I think he has just as much upside as any pitcher on the slate. Would not be surprised at all if he's the highest scoring pitcher by the end of the night. Snell has double-digit K upside pretty much every time he steps on the mound. Facing a Tigers team that will strike out, I think we could easily see Snell go 6-7 innings with 10 strikeouts, get 30 DraftKings points, and be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. So he's my number 1 today. Strasburg is right behind him at second. Ryu definitely would be a third option for me. Not as interested in Ryu. He has been great this year, but I would say his matchup is the toughest out of all the top 3 pitchers. So I'm going to go Snell 1, number 1, Strasburg number 2, Ryu number 3. Frankie Montas, Luis Castillo, and Chris Paddock are all probably going to be guys that I don't really have a ton of interest. They're $1,000 cheaper than all the top 3 guys, but they're also not in that great of a spot. Like Frankie Montas has to face an Angels team that doesn't strike out much. Not that great of a matchup for him. He's also very expensive. He feels a bit overpriced in my opinion. Luis Castillo is facing a pretty tough Cardinals lineup. Don't know if I want to go there at 10-1. Chris Paddock as well in a pretty tough spot against a very good Phillies team. So he's someone that I'm probably going to be avoiding today. Once we get past those 10K guys, then you get to some of these 9K plays. Noah Syndergaard is definitely one of my favorite options in this 9K range. He gets a matchup at home against the Giants. I do like Syndergaard a lot today. In lineups where I don't go all the way up to Snell or Strasburg, I'm sure I'm going to have some lineups where I have Syndergaard as my SP1. I think he has a lot of upside here against a Giants team that does strike out a lot. It's a very good ballpark for pitchers in the Met Stadium, Citi Field, one of the more favorable pitchers park. Low total on both sides of this game, 3.8 implied run total for the Mets, 3.2 for the Giants. I think both pitchers make a lot of sense here. So Syndergaard at 9,600 I like quite a bit. You can also look to Bumgarner at 9K. But Bumgarner would probably be like my third ranked option out of the 9K range plays. Syndergaard would be my number 1. Tanaka would be my number 2 at 9,300, and then Bumgarner number 3. Tanaka I do like a lot versus a Blue Jays team that definitely strikes out versus right-handed pitching. You can get a lot of upside here from Tanaka. Also, the Blue Jays were playing in Coors Field over the weekend, so you could maybe see the Blue Jays have a little bit of a Coors Field hangover here and really struggle against Tanaka. Tanaka has a ton of good swing and miss stuff. He can get a lot of strikeouts, especially against this Blue Jays lineup. They also have a very low total, just a 3.9 implied run total for the Blue Jays. So Tanaka, Syndergaard are 2 guys I really like in that mid-tier if you wanted to go there. And then once we get towards a value, looking for cheap plays, Erod at 8K is a guy that I'm going to have in my player pool against the Royals. He's not my favorite play. He's not a guy that I'm going to be too heavy on, but definitely going to have him in my player pool. If I get him in like 5 or 10% of my lineups, I'm definitely okay with that. The two cheaper guys I want to talk about, though, are Chase Anderson and Jared Eichhoff. Chase Anderson I really like here at 7,200 against the Marlins. Pretty much not. I don't need to say anything here. Chase Anderson is not that great of a pitcher. He's a mediocre pitcher at best, but he's facing the Marlins, and we know how bad this Marlins lineup is. Also, plenty of strikeouts here as well. Even though Chase Anderson isn't a guy that goes out there and gets a ton of strikeouts, he could get 6, 7 strikeouts against this Marlins lineup because of how much they K versus right-handed pitching. The ballpark's the only concern here in Miller Park. That is one of the more favorable hitter parks. But still, this Marlins lineup is just so bad that I think Chase Anderson is a very good play at 7,200. You pair him and Snell together, and you're left with about 4K remaining per player, which you should easily be able to work around today. Then Jared Eichhoff at 7,100 as the second value pitcher I really like. He's going to be facing a Padres team that's going to roll out a lot of righties. This is a Padres team that does strike out a lot versus right-handed pitching. Eichhoff most likely is only going to have to face 2 lefties here in Greg Garcia and Eric Hosmer, and those 2 lefties are not very good in general. I had a lot of interest in Aaron Nola on Monday's slate. We'll see how that goes because Nola was going to be able to face a ton of righties. He's very good versus righties. Eichhoff is much better versus righties, and he's going to be able to face 7 righties in this Padres lineup. So I like him as a value play as well. I think I would rank him behind Chase Anderson, but he's definitely going to be another guy that I leave in my player pool today as a value pitcher. Then once you get past Eichhoff, there's not really much that I like besides him. I guess if you want to really punt, you can maybe like Ronaldo Lopez because he's so cheap. Anytime you can get a pitcher for 5,200 that's fully stretched out that can throw 90 to 100 pitches, that at least makes him interesting. But Lopez just has so much blow-up potential, and it is a 15-game slate. I don't think we really need to take that risk, but maybe if you're really trying to jam in some expensive bats and you want to go cheap at pitcher, if you want to go like Syndergaard, Lopez, you could probably fit in an expensive stack, maybe even 2 expensive stacks. So Lopez isn't the worst value play. I'm probably going to have him in my player pool. Just don't know if I'm going to be really putting a lot of weight on him today or putting a lot of my money on him. I would much rather just try and get up to Chase Anderson or Jared Eichhoff for just 2,000 more. So I think that's it for pitcher today. I think I pretty much talked about all the options that I'm going to be targeting. Let's go ahead and look at some hitters now that we can go to. The first team I want to talk about today is the Rays. I really like them here versus Ryan Carpenter. Ryan Carpenter is not a very good pitcher. This is a guy that I've stacked against multiple times this year. I think the last time he pitched was against the Mets, maybe his last 2 starts were against the Mets. I stacked up the Mets, and they came through for me. I think they hit like 2 or 3 home runs off of Carpenter. He's a guy that gives up a lot of home runs, especially to righties, and the Rays do have some good righties that can hit left-handed pitching well. Yandy Diaz, Tommy Pham, Avisel Garcia, Mike Zunino, Willie Adames, Christian Arroyo. I think all these guys make for pretty good plays today. And once you get past like the top 4, you can get a lot of value out of this Rays lineup with Zunino, Adames, Christian Arroyo, all under 3,600 or 3,600 or less. I want to start off with Adames and Arroyo. I think both of them make for great value plays today. Adames is a guy that's been hitting the ball well lately. He's also been seeing a bump in the order. He was batting towards the bottom of the lineup pretty much all start of the year, pretty much over the last month or two, or since the last month or two, he had been in the bottom of the lineup, but they've been giving him a bump. He's now batting like 6th or 7th. I think the other day he was batting cleanup. And if Tommy Pham and Avisel Garcia are not able to play today, which is a possibility, we could see Adames back towards the top of the lineup, which just gives him a lot more appeal. 3,400, dirt cheap. This is a guy that does have some power. He struggles with strikeouts. He will strike out a lot, but Brian Carpenter doesn't really get strikeouts. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He's going to throw the ball in the zone, so I think Adames is a pretty good play here at just 3,400. If he gets on base as well, Adames can steal bases. He does have 2 steals this year. He's got a little bit of speed, so if you're stacking the Rays, don't want to overlook Willie Adames. Dirt cheap, makes for a lot of sense as a value play. And also Christian Arroyo, another guy I want to talk about. He is dirt cheap, 3,500. Another guy that's been hitting the ball well lately, very well lately, especially for DraftKings. You look at the game log, last 4 games, 18, 4, 14, 16 DraftKings points. has 2 straight home runs, or 2 home runs in a row, 2 home runs in his last 4 games. Does have some sneaky power, very good versus lefties, much better versus lefties than he is righties. And I'll pretty much play anybody versus Ryan Carpenter. So I don't want to overlook these cheap guys from the Rays. Obviously, the good plays are at the top with Diaz, Pham, Garcia, even Austin Meadows. Even though it's lefty on lefty, I think he's a good play. But like I said, you can find a lot of good value from this Rays lineup. I think Mike Zunino is probably the top catcher play when you factor in his price tag, where he should be batting in the order. He makes a lot of sense as well. The 5, 6, 7 I really like from the Rays today. I'm for sure going to have a bunch of stacks where I go with some of those guys from the bottom of the lineup because of how cheap they are. And then another team I really like is the Orioles. The Orioles are getting to face Drew Smyly in Texas, which is fairly hot on Tuesday, 87 degrees. Pretty high totals on both sides of this game. 5.7 implied run total for the Rangers versus Dylan Bundy, and 5.4 implied run total for the Orioles versus Drew Smyly. I really like some of these Orioles bats. Trey Mancini at 5K is probably one of my favorite plays at first base. I don't expect him to be insanely popular today because it is a 15-game slate. But he's a guy that I have a lot of interest in here versus Drew Smyly. Mancini has been great this year, has shown a ton of power, especially versus lefties, has a lot of power from both sides of the plate. He can hit lefties and righties well. Already has 12 homers on the year. Now he gets to go into Texas, one of the more favorable hitters' parks. It's going to be very hot, pretty humid as well. Getting to face a pitcher in Drew Smyly who will give up home runs to righties. I really like this spot for Trey Mancini. I think some of these Orioles bats make for great plays today. They are also pretty cheap, like Alberto leading off only $3,500. Renato Nunez is expensive and VR is expensive, but I think they're worth their price tags today. Pedro Severino along with Mike Zunino would probably be my 2 favorite catcher plays. Severino's also dirt cheap. Even like Keon Broxton, even though he's batting 7th, he's still dirt cheap as well. Really like some of these Orioles bats. Love Trey Mancini here. I think he's a great play versus Drew Smyly. I love this matchup for him. So these are my 5 plays for DraftKings today, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about some stacks now. Then we'll look at BVP before we end the video. So my favorite stack today is probably going to be the Rays, especially when you factor in the price tags of some of these Rays hitters. I really like them here versus Ryan Carpenter. I think these Rays bats make for a great stack here. There's a lot of high totals on this slate. I'm definitely going to be spreading out my ownership when it comes to stacks. I'm not going to go too heavy on many teams, but some of the teams I do really like are the Rays, the Orioles versus Drew Smyly. I think on the other side of this game, some Rangers bats versus Dylan Bundy make a ton of sense. The Red Sox right now have the highest total on the slate at 6 implied run total. So you obviously want to look to some Red Sox bats versus Glenn Sparkman. I think they do make a lot of sense. They're not too expensive. I mean, Mookie's 5K and JD's 5K, so I guess that's kind of expensive, but Benintendi is under 5K, Brock Holt's 3,700. So you can definitely find some cheaper plays in this Red Sox lineup, but in some lineups where I maybe go with like Syndergaard and Anderson or Syndergaard Eichhoff, and I don't pay all the way up to the top at pitcher, I'll probably have a Red Sox stack in there since you could probably fit that in if you don't go all the way to the top. But even in these late night games, we got a couple high totals. Dodgers with a 5.4 implied run total versus Taylor Clark. Don't really know if I want to go too heavy on the Dodgers. They're just probably other teams I'd rather play. This Texas game I really like. Really like the Red Sox bats here versus Glenn Sparkman. I think they're in a really good spot. Obviously, I love the Rays. I'm going to be targeting a lot of Rays bats. I think some Yankees versus Clayton Richard makes some sense. I think some Braves versus Stephen Brault makes sense. I think some Nationals versus Lopez makes some sense if you're not playing Lopez. But all those 3 teams are probably going to be secondary stacks for me. Not going to be a part of like my core stacks, my core 3 or 4 stacks. But I think that's it for stacks today, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about some BVP now before we end the video. So we got about 7 BVP plays, or 8 actually. I'm going to cover these real quick, and then we'll end the video. But starting off with DJ LeMahieu, he's gone 7 for 20 off of Clayton Richard. Todd Frazier gone 6 for 15 with 2 home runs off of Madison Bumgarner. Wilson Ramos 5 for 16 with a home run off of Bumgarner. Daniel Murphy 6 for 16 with 2 home runs off Kyle Hendricks. Matt Carpenter 5 for 13 with a home run off Luis Castillo. Ketel Marte 3 for 11 off of Ryu. Edwin Encarnacion 7 for 18 with 3 home runs off of Wade Miley. I would say Encarnacion is probably the top BVP play of the day. If you want to buy into that, he's done really well versus Wade Miley. And Tim Beckham has also hit Wade Miley well, 3 for 11 with the home run. But I think that's it for BVP, guys. I think that is it for the video. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Hopefully it did help you. If you enjoyed, make sure you click that like button down below. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Or like always, you can hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT if you do have any questions. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck tonight. Peace.